You wake up every single day at the exact same time to the shrill sound of an alarm that signals not the start of a new opportunity, but the continuation of a sentence you force down, black coffee that you can barely taste, you sit in traffic in a car you have finished paying for to get to a job that slowly drains your soul, all to chase pieces of paper or digital numbers on a screen that you have been conditioned since birth to call money, but the brutal, unvarnished truth that nobody told you in school, that your professors ignored in university, and that the talking heads on the news deliberately omit, is that the entire financial game was never designed for you to win. It was meticulously architected to keep you running in a perpetual hamster wheel, generating kinetic energy for a system that siphons the value of your limited time on this earth and transfers the wealth from your calloused hands directly into the vaults of those who understand how the machine actually operates, because the single greatest secret that the banking cartels guard with their lives is not about interest rates or investment vehicles. It is about the very nature of the money you carry in your pocket, and the terrifying reality is that money, in the way you conceive it, is a consensual hallucination, a smoke and mirrors trick created to enslave the workforce without the messy necessity of physical chains. To comprehend the sheer magnitude of the lie you are living, you have to peel back the layers of history and realize that what you use today is not money. It is fiat currency, and the distinction between the two is what separates the billionaires from the middle class, who are one missed paycheck away from ruin. For real money has historically always served three distinct functions: to be a medium of exchange, a unit of account, and most critically, a store of value, something that preserves your purchasing power across decades and generations, like gold or silver, which require physical effort, energy, and time to extract from the earth, ensuring that no king or government can simply snap their fingers and create more of it magically. But the paper in your wallet, whether it is dollars, pounds, or euros, fails miserably at that third function because it is backed by absolutely nothing but your faith in politicians. And since 1971, when the gold standard was unilaterally abandoned, the global banking system gained the godlike power to create currency out of thin air. And this is where the nightmare begins for you, and the dream begins for them, through a perverse mechanism called fractional reserve banking, which is the foundation of the modern world. And if you explained it to a 5-year-old, they would call it fraud, but economists call it monetary policy. It operates like this. When you deposit $1,000 into the bank, believing with naive sincerity that your money is sitting there safely in a vault waiting for you to need it, you are living a delusion. Because the bank does not keep your money. They are legally authorized to lend out the vast majority of that deposit, often keeping a ridiculous fraction like 10% or less as a reserve. So from your $1,000, the bank lends $900 to John to buy a car, and when the car dealership deposits those $900 into their bank, that bank lends out $810 to Mary to renovate her kitchen. And the cycle repeats incessantly until your initial $1,000 has metamorphosed into $10,000 circulating in the economy. Money that does not exist, phantom capital created purely from debt. Which means that if everyone decided to withdraw their cash simultaneously tomorrow morning, the entire system would collapse in minutes because the liquidity simply isn't there. It is all a digital ledger of IOUs that can never be fully honored. But the most insidious part is not just the creation of the currency. It is the devastating side effect this has on your existence. A silent phenomenon that acts as an invisible tax that no one voted for, called inflation. And do not be fooled into thinking inflation is merely the rising price of milk or gas. That is the symptom. The disease is the expansion of the monetary supply, meaning the more money the central banks and governments print and inject into the veins of the system, the less every single unit of currency you sweat blood to save is worth. Think of it as a swimming pool. If you have a bucket of water representing your wealth in a small pool, it has but if the central bank dumps an ocean of water into that pool, your bucket becomes insignificant, diluted into and this is exactly why your grandfather could buy a house with 2 years of a factory salary and you need a 30-year mortgage. to buy a tiny apartment. It is not that houses have become intrinsically more valuable, it is that your money is dying, rotting in your savings account. While the system prints trillions to bail out failing corporations and fund endless wars, effectively stealing your life force, because if you worked 10 hours to earn $100 and the government prints money making those $100 worth half as much. They have just stolen 5 hours of your life, 5 hours you spent away from your children, 5 hours. You will never get back confiscated without warning through the hidden mechanism of inflation. The banking system adores inflation because it benefits those who get the new money first, which is known as the Cantillon effect, meaning the big banks, the megacorporations, and the government itself receive this freshly printed capital before it circulates and drives up prices, giving them increased purchasing power, while you, the salaried worker, the pensioner, the small saver, receive this money last, only after the prices have already skyrocketed, eroding your purchasing power day by day, forcing you to work harder just to maintain the same standard of living, running faster and faster just to stay in the same place. And that is the technical definition of modern slavery, where the bars are not made of iron but of debt and monetary devaluation. And speaking of debt, that is the second pillar of their control. Because the system requires you to be in debt, it needs you to finance the car, the house, the smartphone, the vacation, because your debt is the bank's asset. Your liability is their wealth. Every time you swipe that credit card, you are signing a contract of future servitude, promising to work tomorrow to pay for the consumption of today, compounded by interest rates that are mathematically designed to be unpayable in the long run for the majority of the population. But the secret that the wealthy use and that the banks do not teach you is that there is a crucial difference between bad debt and good debt. Bad debt is what you incur to buy liabilities, things that take money out of your pocket like luxury cars or designer clothes to impress people you despise. This makes you poor. But good debt is used to buy assets, things that put money into your pocket like rental properties or businesses. And the tax system is rigged to reward those who use good debt, allowing tax breaks and deductions that the average worker will never see because the code was written by the owners of capital for the owners of capital. You were trained from childhood to be an obedient employee and a voracious consumer. The school system taught you the Pythagorean theorem and the structure of a cell, but curiously forgot to teach you how to read a balance sheet, how compound interest works, what cash flow is, or how to invest. And this omission is not an accident. It is a feature of the design, because if everyone knew how money worked, who would clean the toilets? Who would serve the coffee? Who would accept working 40 hours a week for a wage that barely covers rent? Financial illiteracy is the most powerful tool for maintaining the status quo, keeping the masses dependent on a paycheck at the end of the month, terrified of losing their jobs, docile and compliant, while the financial elite operate on a completely different level of reality where money is not something you work for, but something you make work for you, utilizing the concept of leverage, using other people's money, other people's time, and other people's energy to multiply wealth exponentially. The inconvenient truth is that saving money in a bank account is an act of financial suicide. The banks pay you a pathetic interest rate on your savings, which almost always loses to real inflation, meaning your purchasing power is mathematically decreasing every single day that money sits idle, while the bank takes that very same capital and achieves astronomical returns by lending it to others or gambling in the derivatives market. They are engaging in arbitrage of your ignorance, profiting from the spread between what they pay you and what they charge. And you thank them for having a free account without realizing that the product being sold is you and your liquidity. To escape this trap, you must execute a brutal paradigm shift. You must cease being a hoarder of currency and become a collector of assets. Understand that wealth is not measured by the number of digits in your account, but by the quantity of real assets you control. Things that have intrinsic value or that generate cash flow regardless of your physical labor. We are talking about productive land, well-located real estate, precious metals like gold and silver that have survived thousands of years of imperial collapses, shares of solid companies that produce essential goods, and more recently, scarce and decentralized digital assets like Bitcoin, which was created specifically as an antidote to this fraudulent banking system. A form of money that no government can print more of, that no bank can confiscate without your private key, and that travels at the speed of light without intermediaries, representing the final separation of money and state. The traditional banking system despises the concept of financial sovereignty. They want you to depend on them for every single transaction. They want to track where you spend, how much you earn, and with the imminent arrival of central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, this control will become absolute, allowing bureaucrats to decide what you can or cannot buy, applying negative interest rates or expiration dates on your money, turning the economy into a digital panopticon, where financial freedom will be nothing but a distant memory unless you wake up right now and start building your own financial ark, diversifying your net worth out of the traditional system, maintaining self-custody of a portion of your wealth learning. 2. Operate in the markets without the need for bank managers who only want to sell you useless products with abusive management fees. The financial matrix is real. It is all around you right now, in your credit card statement, in your mortgage, in the taxes you pay on the money you earn, on the money you spend, and even on the money you die leaving to your children. It is a system of continuous wealth extraction, but it has cracks. And the biggest crack is that it relies on your voluntary participation and your ignorance. The moment you decide to study the history of money, to understand economic cycles, and to take total responsibility for your financial future, you stop being a victim and become a player. You stop selling your time for painted paper and start buying your freedom. Because in the end, money is not the goal. Money is merely the tool. The goal is freedom. The freedom to wake up when you want, to do what you want, to not have to bow your head to a boss you despise because you have bills to pay. And that freedom is the only thing the banks cannot sell you. You have to seize it for yourself by educating yourself, acting strategically, and rejecting the narrative of scarcity they implanted in your mind to keep you small. The game is rigged, yes, but that doesn't mean you can't win, provided you learn the rules they play by in the shadows and stop playing by the rules they handed down to the crowd.